You're listening to the Journey Podcast. What does it mean to truly embody the present moment, and how can it enrich your life? Listen to today's episode to get all the details. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this captivating episode, we journey into the art of embodying the present moment. We explore the profound significance of being fully immersed in the here and now, both in our personal lives and professional endeavors. Our guest shares her transformative experiences and insights into the practice of living mindfully and authentically, emphasizing the importance of embracing the present moment for greater well-being and fulfillment. Through engaging discussions and personal anecdotes, we uncover how the nonlinear movement method has played a pivotal role in our guest's life, offering a unique pathway to presence and self-discovery. We invite listeners to join us on this exploration of the present moment as we delve into practical strategies and mindfulness techniques that can help individuals cultivate a deeper connection with themselves and the world around them. Daniela Hofmann lives in the French Alps. She aims to create a more present, free, and meaningful life for herself and others around her. Daniela is a nonlinear movement and meditation teacher, and she also supports conscious business owners as a consultant and mentor, and is the creator of The Cabin, a mindful online co-working space. Let's meet Daniela Hofmann. Hi, Daniela. It's so great to have you on the podcast. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because embodying the present moment is such an interesting space for holistic healing. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
It's my pleasure to have you here today because I think this is a topic that we can't really talk about enough because it's so relevant in today's times. So do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your story and your background and how you came to work in this really interesting space?
Yeah, sure. Let me actually take it back to, I think it's a good point to start with work. So I have chosen a very traditional route. When I started my career after A-levels, I went to university and then started a graduate scheme and sort of slid into the finance world. And I like numbers. I used to love maths and I like business. So that was it's something that seemed like a good fit. I knew pretty early on. So my dad worked for himself for the majority of his career. And I always knew this is like a time where I can get to learn and then I'll set up my own business one day. So I started this life and I pretty quickly noticed that I'm a bit different than the others there. I probably didn't enjoy as much the climbing up the ladder and trying to do things to better myself in terms of my work skills. I enjoyed working in the teams. I enjoyed working on different projects, but it wasn't so much. There were certain things that just didn't really sit right with me. And I did struggle to be told what to do and have to be in a space that was long before working from home was a thing. So having to be at a space for your whole day, I struggled with that. And once I finished that graduate scheme, I just moved around a lot. I worked for charities to find a bit of purpose, but notice that they're just a microcosm of a business, really, and it's not very different there either. And I worked for a startup. And again, I couldn't really find my place anywhere. Eventually, I met someone at the startup who wanted to leave as well. And we started working on a business idea. It was back in the day, it was a chatbot. And we were way before the times where this would have been like a good thing to do. ultimately it failed, which is totally fine, but it was the thing that got me out of the corporate world. From then on, my life got really eclectic and strange because I worked different jobs, like jobs on the side to pay rent. I started 2 businesses with this friend, lots of things. And I always struggled with finding something that's really me or that's really working for me. So I kind of went from project to project, and it was always like other people's projects. And I think eventually, and I think that was the cabin, that was the first project that was like mine. And it came at a point where I just left the UK. I wanted to travel Europe. The pandemic had just started. So I moved back in with my parents, which was tough in your mid-30s. And I had no real idea. I had just left another freelancing job because, again, I felt like it was mimicking too much what I used to know from the corporate world, where I was micromanaged and things like that. And then I kind of fell into a bit of a hole because I didn't really have anything that I was very passionate about. But all the while, I was always interested because I think there was a lot of going on inside of me that I needed to work through and knew that I needed to work through and had already approached. And this sort of topic around meditation, I think I went to my first silent retreat back in 2010, so a very long time ago, and it kept coming back as like a really beautiful practice to realize that rather than worrying about the future, I could stay here in the present and there are no worries. So I kept coming back to that, but it was difficult when you don't really know where you're going. You're living at your parents', and I think this was when I started the idea around the cabin, where I once went to like a co-working space, online co-working space, really loved it, that you can get so much work done in a short space of time. But I just didn't like the vibe around it. And I was doing a mindfulness meditation teacher training at the time, and I thought would be so beautiful to combine the two. And so I did that with the cabins. I run these co-working sessions now with a mindfulness focus. So we meditate together. We move together, we set intentions, and it becomes a very beautiful workspace rather than one driven by, you have to do this and grinding and hustle. Over the years, the sort of seeking, I think, didn't stop either. So I still had things that I needed to address. And then I left my parents' house again. I had more, I wouldn't want to say drive again, but I was more inspired by life again. And I found something that really worked in my working world. I took on some more consultancy clients that really worked for me. And I moved to France with my partner. And now it's really the embodiment that I'm leaning more into and trying to combine the mindfulness elements with embodiment. And I think the marriage of the two, I think it's so potent. And they got me to where I am now, a much calmer person. I don't seek as much, which I like. I still have my days like everyone has, but I can work through the dips more easily without holding on to it for so long. And yeah, I also live in a beautiful part of the world right now, and the mountains and nature are just such a gift and so important. Yeah, that was a long intro.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And what an exciting journey you've had to kind of end up in the French Alps now and present the co-working space and all the methods and around that, how you do that with your clients and your community. I'm curious because you touched on living more in the present moment. And I think that is becoming more and more important in today's world as we kind of lose sight of that. And we're very often stuck in the past or worrying about the future, as you were saying. Why is it so important that we are more present? Are there benefits to us mentally, physically? Are there any benefits that come along when we live more in the present moment?
Yeah, well, totally. I think if you just search in Google, what are the benefits of mindfulness or being present? I mean, there are a multitude of benefits. Less stress, better sleep, less anxiety. It can even help with depression, chronic pain, just so many. So on a practical level, I think that draws a lot of people into it. And I think if you look back at the last few years, even almost like a decade, mindfulness has just been growing and growing and growing. And even like companies have started to adopt it. And I think this is where it's a little bit tricky for me, because they're just using the surface level. Oh, this could make my people less stressed and maybe they can work more. So I'm not always enjoying this so much when it's being adopted by companies. And I'm hoping it's not just used to make their staff work more. But I love that it's becoming more and more mainstream. It just really does improve the quality of life, especially in a time where things are getting faster and faster. And you're just bombarded with so much stuff from the outside. Like, you've got to find a place inside that is calm and still and like almost doesn't move. And so when the things come in from the outside, you might be affected by them, but it doesn't affect you for long. And you can still live an enjoyable and fulfilled life, even when it's crazy on the outside, which obviously it currently is.
So definitely lots going on. And with stress being the underlying cause of so much disability, disease, and illness in the world, I do think there is a huge place for mindfulness and for living in the moment that's becoming more important. Now, you also talked about embodiment, and how can we imagine embodiment when it comes to mindfulness? What is embodiment and how does that connect to mindfulness?
Yeah, so for me, again, like embodiment has people approach it in different ways and it's defined in different ways. So for me, it means that I obviously can see I have a body. I'm a physical body, like you are, like we all are. So often we just live here, like we live here, we live in anywhere, like neck and up. But we have this beautiful body, and this body feels and it experiences life. And it's like being in the body rather than knowing I have a body. But I'm like, what are the sensations in my arm, for example, rather than, oh, I know I have an arm and it maybe carries some rings and a watch. But it's like, what is it like to be inside of this body? And how does this body move through the world? And how do I not just live in the past, in my head, in the past or in the future, but when something occurs, whatever that might be, how does it affect my body? How can I feel it in the body? How can I process it through my body? I think that is just when we have a stressful job, as an example, or just live a stressful life or a full life, often we can just forget this, that we have this vessel and it tells us so much and it does so much for us. And often we just totally ignore it because we just take it for granted. And you said where the two meet. So I think for me, really, it is, and that for me was often the missing piece. Like mindfulness was in my life for a very long time. And I sort of started off with the sort of pop culture, and it's an interesting thing to know about. And I really like the concept and everything around it. But I think I always struggled with if I want to be in the present moment and I want to just take in whatever is, I want to observe whatever is here. Well, that's tough if in your body lives some old trauma you haven't worked through, or something right now in this moment is bothering you so much that you just cannot be, that your thoughts will literally go off and you be taken out of the present moment. And so I think the body is such a great tool to work with because it allows you to work through some of the old trauma, some of the new trauma, some stuff that is really taking you out of the present moment. And so to combine the two, I think it's perfect to just, again, be more here.
Yeah, and it is, I think, something that I've experienced too. As we get more busy, we almost disconnect from the body because taking care of ourselves becomes sort of a bothersome chore that we have to fit in between all the different things that we have to take care of. So having to find food or time for a shower, and those become things that add to our daily stress because the day is so packed. So coming back to those roots, coming back to our body, and really appreciating what we have that takes us through the day, every single day. I think this is a great thing that you touched on. And most of the time, we don't actually come back to our body until something is wrong and we are forced to stop and figure out what's going on. So yeah, that's a great point. Now, you also work with the nonlinear movement method. Do you want to explain a little bit about what that is and how it's connected to everything that we've been talking about?
Yeah. Of course, the tools I use or the modality I use, embodiment practices I use is the nonlinear movement method. And I'm a teacher in this method. And it's been developed by a lady called Michaela Böhm. She is a well-known speaker. She's a counselor. She's an embodiment teacher and just a fantastic female woman. And really, yeah, I love her. And she developed this method over, 20 to 30 years of her own practice, working with clients. And it's a very powerful somatic practice or number of practices that help you to regulate the nervous system, work through all the new traumas, and again, allow you to be more present. Just a number of things working with the body. What I love about this practice so much is that unlike other body-based, wouldn't always call them embodiment, but body-based practices, it has pretty much no rules. There are two golden rules, meaning it'd be good if you do them, but I think if sometimes you don't pay attention to them, it's not the end of the world, which is you keep your eyes closed so you have an internal focus. And the second golden rule would be to always keep one part of your body moving to stop you from going into a freeze response. But these are the only things. Other than that, it's in the name, it's non-linear. No one tells you what to do. So you're giving the agency back to your body. And I think so often, and with so many things I see these days, and I practiced yoga for many years, but I'm just so not drawn to it anymore because there's a trainer or a teacher who tells me what to do. Especially if I do it in a space with other people, I feel self-conscious because they're much better than me. I immediately go into my head, out of my body. And it's not been a practice that's been really useful for me. And I'm sure there are other approaches to it. But for me, I love the element of you can move however you want. It's what does your body need? And really like going away from my head where I need to think, I need to do this and this. No, my body just moves whatever needs to be moved. And there are certain ways of doing this. You can move with physical sensations. You can move with thoughts. Maybe you have some looping thoughts. Just what's that thought? What's the movement of that thought? So you move that. But even with emotions that are coming up. So it's all of that. And yeah, this sort of freedom that I have and giving the agency back to my body to access its own wisdom. It's been just really freeing. And yeah, it's helped me to just process a lot of things that my head sometimes doesn't understand. And I just trust the body that it does its thing. And sometimes there are tears and sometimes it just shakes. That's what we don't really often, we don't do. Animals, they have fights, they get into stressful situations, they shake things off. Well, we don't do that. So it all gets stored in the body and it starts at childhood and it just grows and grows and grows. And this practice really allows you to work with all of that. And yeah, it's been really transformative for me and my practice and being more here.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating and also like something that many of us could really use in our daily lives. Is this something that you just follow it when your body sort of has the urge to move, or do you set certain times during the day, or do you do this in a more structured way with certain activities, or is this something that you can just bring into your life and use as you need it on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think all of these. So you could use it as a practice in the morning or in the evening to kind of process the day. So whenever we do a practice, it's usually like an hour and we have some integration at the end. So it's a bit of a longer practice. But if you've never done it before, to sort of start with 5 to 10 minutes, I think that's really useful. Yeah, as I said, at the start of the day, to just kind of maybe look forward to the day, maybe call in a few things, how you want to sort of be today or how you want to respond to today, or at the end of the day to almost like Michaela has a beautiful way of saying it. She calls it an emotional floss. As if you would floss your teeth, you do the same, but for just everything that came at you during the day, stresses, things that you're upset about, whatever may be there, you can just work through in the 10 minutes of 1 or 2 songs. And I also use it when something really triggers me and takes me out of what I'm doing right now. So maybe an unpleasant phone call or just something. I mean, life offers so many things. In the past, I would experience it. So the mindfulness would allow me to experience, feel everything that's here to feel, but I wouldn't have anything to let it out. I, many years ago, learned some emotional release techniques, and they are great, but they're so momentarily, and sometimes they just get my system really going, and then I have nothing to calm it back down. So nonlinear movement is way softer. Can be also however you want to move. It can be quite an intense session, but really nonlinear has saved me, or has facilitated and helped me a lot by just working through in the moment through things that aren't so easy to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. And many people don't have any outlets for the stress that comes at them throughout the day. And at the end of the night, that all kind of gets bottled up and pushed further down until there comes a point when the body complains or we have some illness that crops up. And then we are forced to stop and deal with some of those things. So it sounds like a much healthier way of living to actually incorporate these practices and just give yourself that floss at the end of the day and
yes,
recognize that those things happen, but work through them and release them back into the universe. So that sounds like an amazing method. And thank you for sharing that with us. And do you have any programs or services or some ways that listeners could connect with you if they, for example, wanted to work with you on this nonlinear movement method, or they wanted to work with you in their professional or personal lives? How can they get a hold of you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm starting to teach nonlinear as well as like mindfulness techniques. So I'm combining both of them, and really to help people embody the present moment in the session, and then hopefully have the benefits to take into their daily lives. And so I'm starting to teach or to offer sessions. So these are 1-hour sessions in November, and they'll then be happening every month. I'll maybe do them twice a month, but for now, every month. And yeah, these are just great opportunities to not only practice nonlinear, but also to have a meditation as part of this and allow your being to be here.
Yeah, amazing. And we will be linking to all of Daniela's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for the website address and any social links that we put, and links to her programs so that you can connect with her if you wanted to work with her. I'm sure this episode has been quite inspiring for being in the moment and being present. So if you feel aligned, definitely make sure you get in touch with Daniela. And this has been another incredible episode. And I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey that we have taken into embodying the present moment as much as I have. I've learned so much in the past half hour, from the nonlinear movement method to being in the present moment. So I've quite enjoyed our talk. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your wisdom with us, Daniela. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for sharing this past 30 minutes with me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your day and take care.
Ciao.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.